She just told you she's not ready for a serious relationship. After 12 weeks of acting like your perfect girlfriend, your first instinct? To ask why. What can you do to help her work through whatever is blocking her from being with you? This is a classic male mistake. We see a problem and immediately search for a solution. You start asking the right questions about her exes, her childhood, her fears. You see her confusion not as a red flag, but as a challenge to your intellect and patience. Every story she tells about past pain becomes a clue for you in this psychological quest. You mistake her vulnerability for an invitation to rescue her. You dive headfirst into her past. You become her personal psychoanalyst. You convince yourself that if you can just understand where this fear comes from, you can help her fix it. 6 months pass. You have a PhD in her psychological chart, and you haven't moved a single step closer to the relationship you wanted. Today, I'm going to explain why your noble quest to understand a woman's problematic behavior is the very trap that keeps you stuck in the swamp. Because understanding someone else's dysfunction doesn't cure it, it just makes you an expert in surviving it. The analyst syndrome, an addiction to understanding. We've been programmed to believe that understanding is the path to resolution. We were taught since childhood that every problem has a cause, and if you find the cause, the problem disappears. We apply this engineer's logic to human emotions, where it fails catastrophically. What if you find out why someone hurts you? You can magically transform that behavior with your empathy. This belief creates an addiction to solving people, instead of simply evaluating if they're worth your time. A healthy evaluation is observing a person's actions and choices in the present, not an archaeological dig into their past. This analyst syndrome manifests as an obsessive need to decode every action and find the psychological root of every problem. You become convinced that somewhere in her history lies the key that will finally unlock the version of her capable of a normal relationship. This addiction keeps you in situations that any sane friend would call hell. You stay because you're always hoping your next breakthrough in understanding will finally produce the changes you've been waiting for. You confuse psychological insight with actual progress. Every new insight about her trauma feels like a step forward, when in reality, you've just found a new, more complex excuse for why you're still standing in the same place. This addiction is so powerful because it gives you the illusion of productivity while you're sitting still. You're not just waiting, you're getting to know her deeper. In reality, it's just a very sophisticated form of procrastination. The cruel irony is that the better you understand why she can't give you what you need, the less likely you are to demand what you deserve. Your understanding becomes her greatest weapon. It turns your standards from necessary into selfish and insensitive. Understanding breeds tolerance for the intolerable. The doctor trap, the flawed relationship model. Men approach relationship problems using a medical model. It assumes that defining the cause of the problem, diagnosis, automatically leads to its solution, treatment. This model is so appealing because it promises control and a clear process. Diagnosis is greater than treatment, is greater than result. When a patient has a serious infection, doctors don't spend months figuring out why it developed. They are interested in what can be done now. They immediately prescribe treatment to stop the threat. Understanding how the patient got sick is a secondary task that doesn't negate the need for immediate action. But in relationships, men become obsessed with psychological archaeology. She's emotionally cold? You study her attachment type? This doctor trap creates the illusion that psychological problems will magically disappear once they are understood. But behavioral patterns that have existed for decades don't disappear from awareness alone. They require gigantic effort and, most importantly, motivation to change. And that motivation must be hers, not yours. This model also implies that you can diagnose and treat someone else's problems. This puts you in the position of her unpaid therapist, not her romantic partner. The moment you become her doctor, you stop being her desired man, and the power dynamic changes irreversibly. And most importantly, this approach ignores the key question: Does she even want to change? Understanding why she behaves a certain way is completely irrelevant if she has no intention of behaving differently. Secondary gains. Why she won't heal. Many problematic behaviors persist not because people don't understand them, but because the behavior provides secondary gains that make change undesirable. These gains are often subconscious, but they are incredibly powerful motivators for maintaining the status quo. Secondary gains include, for example, avoiding responsibility through victim status. It's controlling others through emotional outbursts, receiving special treatment due to psychological fragility, and receiving constant attention by creating perpetual crises. In essence, their dysfunction is a refined strategy that, as far as they're concerned, works to get them what they want, and as long as this strategy yields results, in the form of your attention and concessions, they have absolutely no reason to change it. For a person receiving these bonuses, their problems are actually solutions to their deeper needs. This makes recovery threatening, not desirable, as it means losing these powerful, albeit unhealthy tools. To heal, for them, means taking on the responsibility they've so successfully fled and starting to compete on a level playing field, which they are terrified of. Your understanding and support in this situation only feed the system. Becoming part of the secondary gain, you give them even more attention and special treatment. This fundamentally explains why some people seem to resist getting better. Despite all your support, they don't fail to heal. They don't want to heal because the price of healing, giving up these benefits, seems too high. They might even go to therapists, but use those sessions not for real change, but to find new, more complex justifications for their behavior. Understanding secondary gains helps you see when someone's problems serve them too well for change to be likely, and it allows you to stop being a savior and start being an evaluator. The solution: filtering, fixing. The most effective way to avoid the understanding trap entirely is to develop a self-selection strategy. This means you only enter serious relationships with women who have already demonstrated the emotional maturity and psychological stability. You are filtering for current capability, not future potential. This strategy requires patience and selectivity. It means you will have to reject relationships with attractive but psychologically problematic women. This is the hardest filter because it requires you to defeat your own fear of loneliness and scarcity. Most men fail this test because they're afraid they won't find better, and so they settle for a project. The self-selection strategy requires an abundance mindset, not a desperation mindset. It's based on the firm belief that you deserve a whole partner, not a project that needs eternal repairs. The primary tool for this is boundaries. Implementing clear boundaries in the early stages is a data-gathering system. How a person reacts to your reasonable no tells you everything you need to know. Boundaries are a character test. Someone who consistently violates your boundaries or gets angry when they are set is showing you their true approach to relationships. Her irritation or attempt to guilt-trip you in response to your no is the purest, most honest signal of her immaturity. A mature person might be disappointed, but they will respect your decision. An immature person will immediately launch an attack to make you doubt your right to those boundaries. This data system eliminates the need to understand why someone has a problem with boundaries, because their reaction to the limit is far more important than the historical reason for their problem. You are evaluating current behavior, not past causes. Her past is her responsibility. Your present is yours. You are hiring an employee for a job, not listening to excuses for why they can't do it. The final truth. The fundamental truth about trying to understand women's problematic behavior is that understanding rarely leads to change, often prevents you from making a rational decision about compatibility, and usually serves her interests more than yours. Your noble desire to understand and support is ultimately used against your own well-being, turning empathy into a trap. This trap makes you believe your patience is an investment, when in reality, it's just a waste of time. The women worth being with are those who have already done the work on themselves, not those who need you to help them. Your role in a relationship is to be a partner, not a healer. Your responsibility is to evaluate if someone can meet your needs, not to understand why they can't. Therefore, your time is better spent finding someone who is compatible than in desperate attempts to create compatibility where none exists. Remember, understanding why someone hurts you doesn't stop them from hurting you. Understanding why someone can't commit doesn't make them capable of commitment. And understanding why someone is emotionally unavailable doesn't make them available. Insight without change is just an excuse you accepted. The most successful men are those who evaluate people based on what they can provide, not on why they can't. They build their lives on standards, not on hopes, and that is why they get real results, not just understanding. Share this video with any man who is tired of understanding his way to nowhere. And if you are ready to stop being someone's unpaid therapist and want more of this sober analysis that saves you years and nerves, subscribe to the Psycheria channel. Hit the notification bell, because here we learn that compatibility is discovered through evaluation, not created through therapy. Shifting responsibility, eternal therapy. The obsession with understanding serves a convenient hidden function. This focus on why feels like safe, intellectual work, while making a real decision in the present feels scary and risky. It allows both participants to avoid responsibility for the present by focusing on the past. While you're busy analyzing why she has trust issues, neither of you has to face the fact that she is choosing not to work on those issues today. Her past becomes a convenient shield, an eternal valid reason that absolves her from the need to change right now. She doesn't have to take responsibility for her behavior because you're so busy understanding her pain. This also protects you from responsibility. It's far more comfortable to play the role of the thoughtful researcher than to admit the bitter truth. Instead of admitting, "I'm accepting bad treatment because I'm afraid to leave," you say, "I'm in the process of understanding her." This reframing allows you to see your passivity not as weakness, but as a form of noble, therapeutic patience. You get to be the good guy who is supportive without ever having to confront the reality that you are simply a spectator to your own unhappiness. This mutual avoidance of responsibility creates relationships that exist in eternal therapy mode. You get stuck in an endless loop of insights and breakthroughs that change nothing in your daily thirst. Life. In them, everything is always being processed, but nothing is ever resolved. You become experts at talking about problems rather than people who solve them. You can only break this by shifting the focus from why this exists to what are we doing about it? And, more importantly, to the question, am I willing to accept that this person isn't changing and leave? The savior complex, the ego trap. Very often, this obsession with understanding masks a savior complex. You subconsciously cast yourself in the role of the one who will heal her wounds and transform her into the ideal partner through the power of your love. This is the most powerful drug for the male ego, the belief that your love and your patience are enough to fix a broken person. This role is very attractive to the ego. It makes you feel important, needed, and morally superior. You're not just another guy, you're her hero, the only one who truly understood her and didn't turn away. You're not just tolerating her dysfunction, you are facilitating her growth. The savior complex keeps you in relationships with fundamentally incompatible people because you are focusing on their potential, not their reality. You're in love with the project, not the person. You're dating the fantasy her, who will appear once you've finished your work. This complex also prevents you from setting boundaries. After all, how can you set limits on someone whose problems you deeply understand? Any attempt to protect yourself is immediately labeled by your own brain as cruel or impatient. Your empathy becomes a weapon used against your own well-being. And this trap attracts women who are more interested in being saved than in taking responsibility for their own healing. She provides the raw material, her dramas and traumas, and you provide the free therapy, your time, resources, and nerves. Escaping the savior complex requires accepting. You cannot heal other people. It is not your job, and more importantly, it is not in your power. Your role is to be a partner, not a healer. The reframe. Relationships as a job interview. Approaching dating like a job interview process provides a much clearer framework for making decisions than the therapeutic model. In business, you don't spend months trying to understand why a candidate lacks the necessary skills. You simply determine they don't meet your requirements and move on to the next candidate. No sane manager would conduct a therapy session for a candidate to find out why they have gaps in their resume. The candidate's trauma and bad relationship with their parents are completely irrelevant if they can't do the required job. This model focuses on what a person can provide now, not what they might be able to provide after extensive personal growth. You are hiring for current capabilities, not future potential after therapy. Investing in potential isn't a strategy. It's a gamble you almost always lose. This approach also recognizes that your time and energy are valuable resources. These resources should be invested in building your own life, not in the endless renovation of someone else's foundation. It helps you realize the fact that she can't meet your needs is, perhaps, not her fault, but it is also not your responsibility to fix it. Applying this logic to dating isn't heartless. It's the highest form of self-respect and rational risk management. If you're starting to see how your attempts to understand and fix have been keeping you trapped, subscribe and hit that notification bell. What I'm revealing today could save you years of frustration. The time trap: healing isn't linear. One of the most destructive aspects of understanding is how it creates infinite timelines for change. When you focus on understanding rather than results, you lose track of reasonable expectations. You become a hostage to a process that has no clear end. The time trap operates on the belief that deep psychological changes take time and that applying pressure is a lack of empathy. This manipulation immediately puts you in the bad guy position as soon as you demand real, visible improvements. Understanding her childhood trauma might explain her trust issues, but that explanation does not justify you accepting those issues indefinitely. Adults are responsible for managing their problems today, regardless of what caused them yesterday. Your life is put on pause, waiting for her healing, which may never come. This trap also prevents you from recognizing when someone is using their history as an excuse to avoid responsibility for their current behavior. She gets all the benefits of the relationship without fulfilling her obligations, all under the cover of working on herself. Your patience is not infinite. You should be concerned with the changes you see in her behavior, not how many insights she's had. Conversations about progress in therapy become more important than the actual lack of progress in your interaction. Awareness without behavioral change is just expensive self-contemplation that doesn't improve your relationship. Character history. Accepting incompatibility. The brutal truth is that problematic behavior usually indicates fundamental incompatibility, not a temporary obstacle. Your love and understanding cannot rewrite decades of a formed personality. A person's core patterns are an expression of their character, not just symptoms of their history. A person who is consistently unreliable or emotionally unstable is demonstrating their current capacity for a relationship. These patterns are who they are now. Compatibility assessment must focus on whether someone can currently give you what you need. This approach eliminates the need to understand why someone can't meet your needs, because the origin of their limitations doesn't change the practical reality. Your needs aren't being met. It doesn't matter why the car is broken. If you need to drive now, you just find another car. Compatibility is discovered, not created through therapeutic intervention. To protect yourself, you need an investment protection strategy. Treat early dating as an evaluation period. You are gathering data, you are conducting research, not building a bond. You are an inspector checking the foundation, not a decorator already mentally hanging curtains. Maintain emotional distance until you have seen consistent evidence of the qualities you require. This distance isn't coldness, it's prudent caution that prevents your desire to be with someone from blinding you. Empathy exploitation. How your kindness is used against you. One of the most sophisticated ways to maintain dysfunction is the strategic use of one's psychological history to exploit male empathy. They have learned that sharing their wounds creates a protective barrier around their behavior, making it difficult for men to hold them accountable. This exploitation turns your natural masculine desire to protect into a tool that prevents you from setting boundaries. Your attempt to set a standard is immediately reframed as pressure that traumatizes her. Every time you think about addressing her problematic behavior, her traumatic past is invoked as the reason why you must be more patient. This system creates a dynamic where her past becomes more important than your present. Your real, tangible pain today is devalued compared to her past pain, which now has eternal immunity. This empathy exploitation is particularly effective on men who pride themselves on being sensitive. These positive masculine qualities are weaponized against your own interests. You are convinced that your strength lies in taking the hit for her rather than in protecting yourself. The most insidious aspect of this system is that it makes you an accomplice in your own mistreatment. It convinces you that your tolerance for dysfunction is proof of your character, not a lack of self-respect. You start to take pride in how much you can endure, instead of taking pride in what you demand.